I started devouring business magazines. My dad would bring them home once they got stale in the office. He would bring them home. And when you read those magazines, this was back in like 1994, 1995, there was no internet, there was no crypto, there was no newfangled, get rich scheme. Those magazines just talked about two things, building a great business and investing in real estate. So that's what I set out to do. I get sick thinking about firing people or letting them go.
Mhm.
And I have many times in my career just dragged the person along. They don't want to work for me. I don't want them working for me, but they need money and I need a body in the chair. And so I employ an HR director. And if you can't afford a full-time HR director, you should employ a fractional HR director, which is a very popular thing. And that way you can just make the hiring and firing decision, but this person's job it is to execute upon that. I've had several people say, "Oh, thank you for firing me." Oh my God.
Welcome back to the Perpetual Growth Podcast, where we explore the strategies, insights, and stories that help you to grow your business, elevate your relationships, and expand who you are as a leader. If you're new here, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Every week, we sit down with operators, founders, and thinkers who are rewriting the rules of modern leadership. Today's guest is someone who embodies entrepreneurial grit, longevity, and execution at scale. Stewart Beal, president of Beal Capital, managing partner at Watermark Partners Real Estate, and longtime real estate investor and developer. Stewart bought his first property at 19 years old, a 5-unit building in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Is that how you say it, Stewart?
That's right. Ypsilanti,
Yep.
Michigan.
Ypsilanti, Michigan. Thank you. And over the last 2 decades, he's built an organization that now manages over 3,100 apartments, single family homes, and office spaces across 27 cities. He's led major redevelopment projects, revitalized historic buildings, raised significant investor capital, and played a key role in Detroit's broader comeback through projects like the Broderick Tower redevelopment. So today, we're going to dive into things like how Stewart scaled from one small multifamily to managing thousands of units, the business infrastructure behind successful property management, what most new investors miss when evaluating properties, why construction, financing, and operations must integrate, not operate in silos, and the mindset required to sustain growth over decades, not just years. So Stewart's a rare mix of operator, entrepreneur, and community builder. He's living proof that sustained execution beats big talk every time. So let's jump in. Stewart, welcome to the Perpetual Growth Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Well, as my audience knows, Stewart, I love to open with this question because it reveals in my mind's eye a lot about who someone really is. What does growth mean to you right now in this season of your life?
Yeah, so we have 100 employees at Beal Real Estate. That's accountants, property managers, construction managers, maintenance staff, leasing staff. And growth to me is really seeing them grow in their both professional lives and personal lives. I specialize in hiring people at the bottom and bringing them up through the organization to the top. For instance, Lance, who started as an intern, is now our chief financial officer 15 years later.
Wow.
Jeff, who started as a laborer on a large construction site, 15 years later is our chief construction project manager. And both of those men have purchased houses since I've met them. Started family, have multiple kids, wives. And so that's something I'm big on is everyone around me like growing in both professional and personal life. In terms of company growth, you can look at all the sorts of metrics, revenue, properties managed, investment dollars raised, and I do look at all of those things. Track my net worth and those type of things. But like now that I'm in 23 years into my career, those things matter a little less to me. Whether and more, it's like, what am I working on that's interesting?
Passion and purpose. And I love what you said. I mean, you encapsulated very well one of my core leadership philosophies, which I mean, actually, I think it is the core leadership philosophy, which is leaders create more leaders. And it sounds like you've been doing that and at a very high level for a significant period of time. If you would I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that because I mean I think it also runs in a very strong parallel with finding your passion and purpose because work's not work when you love what you do, and it makes it that much easier to show up every day and then build and pour yourself into the people that can grow and really fulfill a lot of the roles that we need to see the company succeed as a whole. What where did that mindset start for you? I mean, was that the world that you grew up in, or was it the opposite? Like, did you have that kind of mentorship when you were first getting into business and purchasing your first 5 unit building at 19? Like, where did the journey start, and who was there to support you along the way?
Yeah, so I come from a pretty privileged background. My mom is a lawyer, and my father is a contractor who has had as many as 200 employees working for him. And he's done about 3,000 projects in his career at the University of Michigan as a construction contractor. So when I was 11, 12 years old, I started devouring business magazines. My dad would bring them home once they got stale in the office. He would bring them home. And when you read those magazines, this was back in like 1994, 1995, there was no internet, there was no crypto, there was no newfangled, get rich scheme. Those magazines just talked about two things: building a great business and investing in real estate. So that's what I set out to do. I started a lawn care company when I was 13. I know a lot of people do that. You're mowing your neighbor's lawns. But when I was 16, we had about 400 customers. It was a real business. And I sold that business when I was 19 for $250,000. Got $50,000 down and $1,500 a month for 10 years. And that propelled me into real estate for two reasons. I could take that 50,000 and buy a property with it. And then also that 1,500 a month gave me a lot of flexibility to go do entrepreneurial things, because I knew that if they failed, I would still have, the $1,500, a month coming in. So
Yeah.
that's how I started when I was 19. And people ask me all the time, you know, how do you get started in business and how are you so successful? And I half jokingly say, well, make sure your mom's a lawyer. Because I'm just completely honest about this. I consider myself a self-made person, but I definitely took advantage of the privilege that was around me and credit my parents for a lot of my success.
Yeah, 100%. Sounds like you had great guidance, mentorship, leadership on both fronts. I mean, and those are not like, I mean, a lawyer and a contractor is two very different hats. But what I'm hearing from you is they both had strong leadership aptitude because that obviously developed who you were at the core very, very early. I mean, to sell a business at 19 for a quarter million is pretty dang impressive. I mean, and have had, you said 400 customers by the time you were 16, so within 3 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, I really I want to know more about that. Like, just a personal example. I don't know if I shared this story with you, but when I was 19 years old, I took over a family business, and what I didn't know was that that business at the time was only doing about $300,000 a year in gross revenue in a commodity-based industry, and was over $800,000 in debt. So dad did well, but this business was like a passion project of my mom's in a separate life, and I didn't realize the uphill battle I had ahead of me, and I had to figure out a lot on my own. And while Dad had business acumen, he wasn't necessarily the best and most patient at sharing it. So I had to find other ways to surround myself with other brilliant people that could actually share that knowledge and help me grow and scale through that process. You sounds like you had it a lot. I mean, how much of it was you, and how much was extracted from them? Because 400 employees, you had to have had systems in place. I mean, were you actually actively marketing? Was everything built word of mouth? Like, I just want to understand more, like, fundamentally, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so the nice thing about landscaping and lawn care is success is highly correlated to the amount of hours that you work.
Mhm.
And so I know a lot of businesses are like that, but in landscaping and lawn care, it's very highly correlated. So, uh, you're billing your time and the people working around you's time per hour to your customer. And so we just worked an incredible amount of hours. I would recruit friends, family to come work for me. All my friends worked for me at various times, and we would just put in the work. And In landscaping, when you're billing by the hour, I didn't bid by the job. That's too risky for someone who's 16, 17. I just said, look, it's going to take 8 hours. And if it takes nine, I'm going to bill you nine, but I'm going to work my butt off and hopefully it'll take eight. And then it ended up taking seven, and your customer's happy and you're happy because you can't lose money when you're billing by the hour, you know? And
Mhm.
so, yeah, just incredible amount of hard work. And then, yeah, we built the systems and we did the marketing. I at least three times posted a flyer in every single mailbox in Washtenaw County where I live. That's hundreds of thousands of houses. Me and a friend would do it late at night, running around in the neighborhoods putting these out. And a lot of word of mouth though, because people really liked the story. Hey, like look at my property. Like, oh, how's your property looking so good? Oh yeah, a teenager did that. What? A teenager did that. So there's a lot of good word of mouth. Um, and the business actually exists today. It's now 27 years old or something like that. It's run by the person who bought it from me, and she's doing an amazing job with it. She's got investment properties and kids, and so again, leaders bringing the leadership up.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's how it all started. It's just incredible amount of hours. People ask
Yeah.
me, all the time, why can you get so much done? And how are you so successful? And I say, you got to put in the hours. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of this stuff isn't rocket, landscaping's not rocket science.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Grit, perseverance, learning as we go.
Exactly.
It's like we either succeed or we learn. I love that. Beautiful story. Yeah. Now that dovetails into, I mean, as you mentioned, at 19, you had the exit. You got 50,000 in your pocket. You're earning 1,500 bucks a month for the next 10 years. And you made that decision. I'm going to move into real estate. And I think what I love about this is, I mean, I think that is a trend amongst the wealthy that has never shifted or changed. I've yet to meet somebody that is wealthy that doesn't have real estate as at least some corner or significant portion of their investment portfolio. So that one is timeless, and I don't see that changing for a very long time. And you got into it because that was where the business investment magazines were pointing people at that stage. It was one of two directions. What did you? What made you the decision to go into multifamily from the go? Because most people have a tendency to default what they know. I'm going to buy another house. Maybe I might rent out some rooms, and they go more of the residential route. How did you have the foresight, and I believe it was foresight, to move right into multifamily? And what was that initial experience like? I mean, what were some of the fears that you were battling when you're like, I'm going to make this initial decision? Did you move into one of the rooms on the property? Just talk a little bit about that experience. I'm sure that was a core component to really who you are today.
Yeah. So my main focus is on recurring revenue businesses.
Mhm.
Landscaping and lawn care is a recurring revenue business. I would have people sign multi-year contracts so that I know that I'm going to be working with them for years and doing their lawn care and their landscaping. I would have a menu that the customer would fill out. I want you to do my spring cleanup, fall cleanup. They would check it. That way I could sell the business to someone someday and there'd be some value there because they would say, oh, look at all this business that I'm going to do next year without even having to go do anything.
Mhm.
And so real estate is a recurring revenue business, both as an investor collecting the rents and as a property management company charging a property management fee. So I know I wanted to do both of those activities. Now,
Mhm.
why did I buy a 5 unit building instead of a single family? That actually happened a little bit by accident, but also it was intentional. The first thing I'll say by accident is I met a man who owned 11 properties around Eastern Michigan University, and they were from single family up to 5 units. So there was some duplexes, triplexes, a fourplex, but there was only one vacant unit in his portfolio, and that was in the 5 unit. And I also needed a place to live. So I started focusing on the 5 unit because I was going to what's called house hacking. That term didn't exist back then, but it's a very popular term now. I was going to live in the fifth unit and rent the other four, and then hopefully those four people would pay all of my living expenses. And I wouldn't have to contribute to the building to pay its costs. That worked out most of the time. Some of the time I did have to pay some rent in order to break even on the investment, just because maintaining these old historic buildings are expensive, and there's things that you don't think about. And some of the tenants didn't pay rent some of the time, so that was a learning curve as well. But that's how that happened. People
Mm.
ask me today, I want to, I'm a young person, I want to invest in my first property. What I tell them is to go buy a 3 bedroom single family house that has a basement that you can turn into a fourth bedroom by installing an egress window. You're going to create an immense value by turning a house from a 3 bedroom into 4 bedroom, and then you should house hack. As long as you're not married and don't have kids, you should house hack, rent. You live in one of the rooms, find 3 friends, associates, business professionals, young professionals, I should say, to come rent this house for you. And simple math, your mortgage, taxes, insurance is 1,500 a month. You charge each of your 3 friends 500 a month. That way, they're paying 100% of your mortgage, taxes, and insurance. You guys split the utilities, and so your living expenses, instead of being in a single family house for 1,500 a month or whatever, it's going to be $100 a month. And
Mm.
that's how you do that. Now you're going to need some startup capital, and so you should work hard to save that. But buying a single family home in a secondary or tertiary market, and they exist all over the United States, secondary or tertiary market really shouldn't take too much savings. You just got to go get it done. You're talking 10,000 down, 15,000 down, maybe at the most 25,000 down to get into one of these new home buyer programs,
Yeah.
and get the deal done. So it's getting over that analysis paralysis. It's getting over the going to do going to do the deal type of anxiety, and just buying your first property. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, brilliant. So my question becomes, really on either front, whether it's the residential home that you just mentioned and renting out the rooms, or the multifamily, how and when, what is or was your liquidation event? Like, did you end up refinancing and leveraging that cash to buy a new home? Did you end up selling either one of those properties? Was there a strategy that you find is best, or is it really going to be market dependent and based on how well the property is cash flowing at that point? Like, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So in my opinion, there's no way for a young person tomorrow to just become a real estate investor like that.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
have to be investing in real estate on the side while working your butt off on multiple streams of income, so that the little bit of cash that's coming off the real estate, you put that with your multiple streams of income by working your butt off, and then that can buy your second property. And then you've got 2 properties. You can work a little less here because you got a little more cash here, and then you buy your third property. There's no way to just buy a property and then expect to be able to quickly get money out of that property through either cash flow or refinance. You've got to be you've got to be working your tail off too.
Hmm.
And so what I did is I bought the 5 unit and didn't slow down on any of my other entrepreneurial activities. I was doing construction. I went back and worked at the landscaping company for money. Sometimes I did a lot of different things to earn money, so that I was able to buy a property a year
Hmm.
up until the foreclosure crisis. And then when the crisis happened in 2008, it was bonkers, and you could buy properties that are worth $400,000 today for $40,000 or less. So I ended up buying a property a month through the foreclosure crisis, whereas before it was a property a year.
Hmm. That's amazing. So I'm also hearing the power of timing and patience. I mean, we know that market cycles are going to come and again, and at some point there's going to be another dip in the market and opportunity to capitalize. It's like, isn't it Warren Buffett, right? It's when most others are greedy, I'm fearful. When most others are fearful, I'm greedy, and that's the time to step in.
Yeah, exactly. And then, if you want to be a robust investor, you should just plan to make a real estate investment every month or every 3 months or every 6 months, depending on how much access you have to capital. And uh, you're going to pay a high price today. You're going to pay a low price 6 months from now. You're going to pay a high price a year from now. But I mean, what other choice do you have if you want to become a robust real estate investor? You can't really time the market. You just have
Sure.
to invest as much as possible, as quickly as possible. And um, I think they say the best time to buy real estate is today and the next best time is tomorrow or something like that. So,
Yeah.
you shouldn't try to time the market. Obviously it's going to be more difficult when interest rates are 7% when they were than when they were 3%, but still try to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. And I mean, I think that rule applies to investing in general. It's like you can't if you're trying to time the market cycles, the probability of that, I mean, the success rates for that for the majority is very, very small. So the best time to get is now. But when's the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and second best time today. So
Yeah.
just get into it, right?
Yeah,
Um,
my neighbor yesterday was decorating a 20-foot tall pine tree that I remember him planting. And
wow.
it was really I stopped and pulled over. I was like, "Oh my God, Steve, I remember when that tree was a foot tall." And he was like, "Yeah, pretty impressive, isn't it?" And so it's compounding returns. Uh, every dollar you save today will be one less dollar you need to earn in the future. Like, just that's why you got to put in the hours as a young person and start
Mhm.
investing.
Yep, I tell my daughter that same thing. My oldest daughter that same thing all the time, honey. I'm like, honey, if there was one thing that I could teach, it's start investing your money the day that you start earning money.
Yep.
Don't wait and treat it like a tax. Treat it like something that you're never going to see again. Put it away. Don't touch it. Let it grow and compound. And I'm not talking about savings. I'm talking about actual investments, whether that's into the stock market, indexes, or into real estate or any combination of. I think that's really, really wise. So talk a little bit about this. So fundamentally, what do most investors, new investors in particular, miss when they're evaluating opportunities? What are some of the most common mistakes that people can avoid, and what questions should they be asking themselves?
Well, in real estate, it's who's going to manage the property.
Mm,
So a lot of people make mistakes by investing into areas that are too difficult. The reason you're getting that price, that low price, is because the difficulty of managing real estate in that area, whether it's crime, inability to locate or attract attractive quality tenants. There's a reason that real estate in Denver, Colorado, costs what it costs, and the real estate in Toledo, Ohio, costs what it costs. It's
mm,
it's a night and day different environment, and it's who's going to manage your real estate. The biggest mistakes, a couple of the biggest mistakes I've made in real estate, and I've made plenty, is by hiring someone, buying a property that I personally could manage, but then passing that off to someone else, thinking they would be as good as me, and they did not manage the real estate well. And since I'm investing in multiple properties a month, I can't manage all of them, and certainly can't manage them long term. And so I've had some real duds that, I definitely think I could have made it successful if I worked there every day, if I was on site every day, but I can't be, and I hired the wrong person to manage it. So that's really, from a real estate perspective, is who's going to manage your real estate. There's a lot of good property managers companies out there. It's also very easy to manage single family homes, so you can buy a couple single family homes, manage them yourself. But once you get into like a mid-size apartment building, it's a 24-hour, 7-day a week job, and so you've got to build a team if you're going to build it yourself, or hire someone good.
yeah. What are some of the qualities you look for in those managers? I mean, I think that speaks to business in general. I mean, hiring is one of the areas that we can and should invest the most amount of time and resources. But we also have to come up with our own formula, so to speak, for how to properly hire, vet, and train people. I mean, what are some of the things that you're looking for when you are evaluating property managers and trying to make sure you have the right butt in the right seat?
So you need to have someone that downs the crazy and doesn't up the crazy. Um, Property management is a crazy business. And so if you employ someone who receives information and starts running around with like a chicken with their head cut off, screaming and yelling like, oh my God, it's not gonna work. So that's the first thing. You need a very level-headed person, because in property management, you deal with things just like a Marine would or a police officer would. It's like, okay, I just cleaned up that unbelievable situation. Now I need to pivot and deal with this more normal situation without this person even knowing that I had to deal with this unbelievable situation. Obviously, a Marine, a police officer is much difficult than a property manager, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, And so you need a level-headed person. And then the second thing is you need someone who really cares, and they want to manage the real estate like they're the owner, and someone that cares about the residents because the residents are um, your customers in real estate. Um, and I've had plenty of property managers who are like at war with these residents. I'm like, oh my God, like wouldn't it just be easier to do what they're asking you to do? We had that situation this morning. A woman uh, is at war with her neighbor because there's only one handicap spot and they're both fighting about the handicap spot. And so I said to the property manager, hey, have you thought about installing a second handicap spot? And she was like, oh, that's a great idea. Okay, I'll do it. And so she just needed a little bit of, she's like, what do I do? They're fighting, and so I just need a little bit of, you know, just put yourself in their shoes type of thing and get it done.
Yeah.
And then that eliminates the fighting. Although I'm sure they'll find something else to fight about.
Yeah.
But let's resolve it if we can. It's very inexpensive to install a second handicap spot.
Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
are the types of things that we work on in property management.
What is the balance in that? Because I mean, there's countless different dichotomies in business, but one of that comes to mind is you focus too much on the clients or the tenants in this case, and the business can suffer because you can overinvest. You focus too much on the business and the client experience, the tenant experience can suffer. Like, how do you coach that middle ground from a management standpoint? I mean, I love the example that you just gave. Where is at what stage are they thinking, okay, I have ownership over this. This is a decision I can make. I don't need to run to Stewart and be like, okay, I need to get approval on this right now. Um, Talk a little bit about that because I think it's such a fascinating stage in leadership is where people have like trepidation and then they can be overly protective of the resources, which we want the managers to be. And at the same time, like you said, we have to think about what the clients want and what's going to create a better experience for them because then they're going to stay longer and be happier and not be a headache. Is there a middle ground? Is there a formula to follow? Like, how do you coach that?
Yeah, so it's very, very difficult, especially in third-party property management.
Mm,
Um, in third-party property management, you don't own the property and you're stuck between the resident and the owner, and they're trying to make both of them happy at the same time. The resident wants you to spend money on maintenance. The owner doesn't want you to spend money on maintenance. And so you're at this loggerhead, I would say. And so what we try to do is we set, and I've been doing this for 23 years, try to set math equations to these ideas. So
mhm,
my property managers don't have to say, hey, Stuart, this person doesn't want to renew their lease because they've lived here for 15 years and they need carpet. My property manager already knows that we will gladly trade new carpet for a new lease. And so they can just get that done without my involvement.
mhm,
In our property management contracts with our clients, it says that we can spend money on anything under $1,000, and anything over $1,000, we need to seek approval from the client. That works
mhm,
out about 90% of the time. And occasionally it doesn't. Like, why did you spend $400 on this? It's, well, because of this. I wouldn't have spent it. Well, you hired us to manage the property, and I understand you wouldn't have spent it, but this is why we did, and I think it's a pretty good reason. And you just try to justify it. But yeah, it's very, very challenging. A good example is the sink, the kitchen
mhm,
sink. Okay, so the kitchen sinks breaks for the second time.
mhm,
Do you fix it or do you replace it? Because if you fix it, it's going to break again, but it's going to be cheaper than buying the new faucet. But if you replace it, you're not going to have to bother the resident again. The resident's going to be happy. You're not going to have to go there a third time. And so, again, what we say is fix something once, but don't mess around with it a second or third time and just, replace it. Good
mhm,
example is like a dishwasher.
mhm.
If you're screwing around with that thing for the third time, just replace it. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, those are great examples because you're helping them to look through the lenses of objectivity and subjectivity. It's like, okay, here's a financial benchmark where you have the permission to go in and handle these things. And then here's where you also need to take a step back, zoom out, look at the greater field of play and determine what is the long-term impact of any one of these decisions. Like, And I think it's really easy to get hyper fixated on the pain of the moment and pursue the simple and easy thing, but not necessarily what's going to have the greatest impact. So really, really wise leadership. Uh, Tell me another thing I'm curious about is uh, how what's brilliant in your model is, I mean, you've pursued the real estate acquisitions, and then you said, "Hey, we're going to actually build our own property management company." You just said a minute ago, though, if I think I heard you correctly, that you're not managing all of your properties. So, what does that balance look like for you?
Yeah, so at various times, I've been invested in as many as 6,000 apartments, and we were unable to scale our in-house property management company to meet that need, meaning we were raising capital and investing it quicker than we could build the property management company out. So
Mhm.
we've had to hire various other property management companies at various times. I think I've had as many as six different property management companies.
Mhm.
Also, also uh, property management is very regional specific. I have no experience managing property in Texas, for instance, and so if I was going to buy a property with someone in Texas. I mean, I wouldn't take the lead on it, but if someone called me and said, "Hey, Stuart, come in with me on this property in Texas," I would say, "Okay, we need to find a really good Texas-based property management company that knows what they're doing out here." And so we've been successful many times doing that, and then we've failed a couple times.
Yeah. Are there states you don't want to invest in?
Uh,
You tend to avoid?
so I invest in Michigan because that's where I live.
Mhm.
I invest in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, because I think that people are eventually not going to be able to live in Florida due to insurance reasons, and they're not going to want to live into Michigan. They're not going to want to move to Michigan because of snow, and so they're going to end up in Tennessee and Alabama and Georgia. So
Yeah.
I think those states over the next, 20, 30 years are going to really grow, and so that's why I invest in those states. But I don't do it directly. I do it through a partner of mine who raises real estate syndications just like I do in those states. And then I also invest in um, senior housing and rehabilitation homes and things like that in any state because just looking at the metrics of the U.S. population shows that's probably going to be a pretty good idea.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a mass exodus in the workforce right now. All of our baby boomers, my parents included, are now retiring, and they need additional housing and support. So there's definitely a massive need in an underserviced market there. So brilliant foresight again.
Yeah,
Uh,
and we've been investing in facilities that have three parts where you have very limited services, but then as you get older, you need middle level services, and then if you get dementia or some of those where you need like full time services, you don't have to move out of the facility. You can just move around, and I think that's a pretty smart move.
Ooh, yeah. Are you typically investing? This is more of a curiosity question of my own. And now, like, are you typically investing in larger retirement facilities or more of the smaller? And I don't know if this is the correct term, but group home type facility where there's a on-site nurse and maybe 8 different people in the house. Um, is there
These are
one that you find?
larger, yeah, these are larger purpose-built facilities, 200 rooms, 100 rooms,
Gotcha.
um, and they have robust staff and dining facilities, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about now is there what's one mistake that you see investors or operators making too often?
So a major mistake and the biggest mistake I've made in my career is not having a property insured properly.
Mhm.
So, I had to call a client one morning, January 1st, and tell him, "Hey, your building is fully engulfed in flames." And he started screaming. I said, "You don't need to scream. We'll handle it with the insurance company." And he said, "No, I let the insurance lapse. Got too expensive, so I didn't renew it." So that was like $1.5 million loss on this apartment building. But there's lots of ways to have your properties underinsured. You think they're properly insured and they're underinsured. And so as they grow in value, as the risk change, you need to evaluate that. And I would recommend buying robust insurance. You definitely don't need it until you do, and then you need it quite a bit. Um, the the second mistake is keeping people employed on your team far longer than you should. I get sick thinking about firing people or letting them go.
Mhm.
And I have many times in my career just dragged the person along. They don't want to work for me. I don't want them working for me, but they need money and I need a body in the chair, and it just we're both miserable. And so I employ an HR director. And if you can't afford a full-time HR director, you should employ a fractional HR director, which is a very popular thing. And that way you can just make the hiring and firing decision, but this person's job it is to execute upon that. And I've had several people say, "Oh, thank you for firing me. Oh my God, I couldn't do this anymore. I just couldn't quit because." And so that's making sure that as your company grows, you have the right team members on the team.
Yeah. You know, I that resonates with me on a really high level because I've run into that multiple times throughout my career, whether it was a company I owned, something where I was sitting in a leadership seat on a team. And, I have such a strong passion for people. And like I believe in the value of leaders create more leaders. And sometimes I can lean far too heavily into that side. And the heart, the desire, the enthusiasm to see that person grow and succeed, unfortunately outweighs their own enthusiasm. And
Right.
like, how is there? I mean, leveraging an HR professional to have the hard conversation thing is absolutely brilliant because I know that's the kind of thing that keeps me awake at night. And regardless of if they absolutely deserve it or not, I still feel sick about that decision. But is there a way to, nip that? I think what for me, one of the biggest things I learned is that the sooner I make that decision, when start to have that awareness, when it becomes a repeat conversation in my mind, I know I need to make it. It's make it now. Don't delay. But is there anything else? Just because it's like, kill the monster while it's small, because for them and for you, those stories are going to start to stack and compound in your head, and it just becomes that much more divergent. But is there anything else that for you are like the warning flags, the things that help give you permission to make these decisions sooner than later? Like, what are you looking for? What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Well, the first is lack of trust. I mean, once you lose trust, it's really hard to gain it back. I
Mm-hmm.
had to fire an accountant last year because she kept getting tricked by scammers. And we have controls, balance, checks and balances so that people can't steal our money. But, I had to sit her down and say, look, this is the fourth time a scammer has been able to, spoof you, infiltrate you, type of thing. You're just not like, you know, you're not aware, and so the scammers never successfully stole any money from us, but like it got pretty up there in our checks and balances where it came kind of close. And so I just said, look, I've lost trust in your ability to be on our accounting team. We have to let you go. But I should have made that decision way sooner. I shouldn't have let it get to a fourth time.
Yeah.
But like again, with when you have an HR director, and I've had an HR director most of the time in my career, and I've got a good one now going on 3 years. Um, you can just send an email and say, "Hey, Sarah, this person's not working out anymore. Can you please terminate their employment?" As opposed to like feeling sick about it for weeks.
Yeah, yeah. That's fantastic advice. I love that on every front. So what I would love to share, sir, there's a few takeaways, and I've got one last question just to kind of close things out. So, a few things I would like to highlight. Some of the things I'm hearing is execution beats complexity. It's like you built your empire with simple principles done consistently. You buy well, you operate well, and you treat people well, and you do it consistently. Like when you can buy one every month. At minimum, try to buy one every year, but you got to be consistently making those investments because that's the only way you're going to compound and eventually be able to start collecting on that residual. And don't expect those big wins early on. The reality is, in any stage of life, we have to make sacrifices in the beginning to be able to create the life that we want and the residual income, in this case, later. Another big one is real estate, from what I'm hearing, is very much like any business, a systems business. Success isn't just about acquiring property. It's about integrating capital. It's about construction. It's about operations and having them all in a unified game. And when you silo them, that's when you start to have problems because you have to have the property, you got to have the tenants, they got to be happy. You have to have the manager that knows how to manage both the financials and the personalities within, and they got to balance not only the tenant but also the owner. So having all those things in place is absolutely critical. And then third is I heard that longevity really requires resilience, like whether it's market cycles, redevelopment challenges. Like you're a perfect example that sustainability comes from adaptability and not really shortcuts. Is there anything that you'd want to add to that? Does that like it feel like it fairly well encapsulates our conversation so far?
Yeah, I mean that's perfect. I mean, people all the time say, "Oh my God, like I can't believe you voted that way," or "I can't believe your politics are like that," and like won't that happen and this happen? And I say, look, I can only control what I can control. I can't control anything even close to what you're talking about. What's key to me is just to adapt. So,
Mhm.
people are like, well, what if they pass rent control? Won't that make your properties worthless? I'll say, well, the rent control will be on everybody's properties. So it's not going to make my properties worth anything less or more. It's going to be affect the whole market. And then that'll actually create a lot of opportunity because a lot of sellers are going to be like, I'm not dealing with this and I want to sell my properties. I want to dump them and then I'll scoop them up. And, so
Mhm.
just being adapting to what's going on because you can't control things that are happening up here. And if you spend a lot
Mhm.
of time trying to do that, it's going to be a waste of time, in my opinion. So people are like, what happens with interest rates? What if they go up? What if they go down? I say, look, I'm just trying to invest a property every month or two. I'm going to borrow money, whatever interest rate it is, to do it. And then if interest rates come down a lot, then what we'll be doing? We'll be refinancing. So
I
that's what
love
I
that.
say.
Because one of my questions, I was just about to ask you, I still have one other question, but one of the things that was in the back of my mind is like what is the mindset that's required to sustain growth over the decades, not just the years? And what I heard from you is the willingness and ability to adapt. It's like times change, and the reality is we either change with the times or we get left behind. I mean, we could go into a deep conversation about AI and integration and all these different technologies. A perfect example, you either get on board or you're, well, frankly, not even gonna be able to have a job at McDonald's here in the very near future. So we have to learn how to leverage these new things and think differently. It's like I love the Wayne Gretzky quote, like, "What made you the best in the world?" He goes, "Most athletes skate to where the puck is. I skate to where the puck is going." So there's also the power of anticipation. And there was one other thing that you just said. I'm trying to figure out the best way to summarize it. Um, but outside of that ability to adapt, it's also don't get hung up on your fears. I heard you just say, well, what about this? Or how do I do this? It's like, don't get stuck in the tyranny of how, right? Know what you want, know why you want it, the purpose, and how will present itself. But the more you worry about being in the right place, at the right time, and do all these things, you get analysis paralysis. You never make a decision. So it's like, make a decision and you either succeed or you learn. Is that fair?
That's very fair. And in closing of that, I was the happiest sitting on a lawnmower when I was 16. So if this all falls apart on me, I would love to go back to mowing lawns and I would be great at it and I would make a lot of money doing it.
That's awesome. So I love that too. It's like another part. I hope everybody's hearing this because there's so many like subtle messages in here that and gold nuggets that Stuart's dropping is no matter what happens, he's like, I will find a way to succeed, and not only succeed, I'll find a way to be happy. So here's my last question. I like to ask this of every guest. If someone were to describe your impact 20 years from now, what do you hope they'll say?
Yeah, so I hope my staff will say that they had a successful career and grew working for our business. I hope that the community will recognize our economic development opportunities. We take foreclosed, abandoned, shuttered buildings and we restore them to useful occupancy, done it more than 100 times. And then our real estate investors and clients, I hope they'll say that we were happy with the services, that we were provided and we received a good return.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Well, Stuart, I appreciate the wisdom and straight shooting clarity you brought today. Your journey is a masterclass in staying committed to the long game, leading with integrity, and building something that lasts. So for everyone tuning in, if this episode gave you any kind of insight, perspective, inspiration, share it with somebody in your world who's building their own path. Make sure you give us a follow. And if you guys are thinking, how do I get in touch with Stewart? Maybe you are an investor, you've got a property you want to develop. If anything struck a note today, Stewart, where's the best place our guests can reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm very active on Facebook. I'm Stewart Beal. Send me a message. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I've got a virtual assistant who handles my messages on there, but she knows how to escalate things that I would care about. And we also are bealcapital.com. If you'd like to invest with us, we are raising $20 million to invest in apartment buildings in one fund and raising money to invest in commercial buildings in another fund. So, yeah, if you'd like to invest with us, that'd be great.
Fantastic. And we'll make sure that we have all those links included in the show notes so you guys don't have to search or rewind at all. And again, if you haven't already, follow the show, leave us a review, hit subscribe so you don't miss future conversations with leaders like Stewart. Stewart, again, thank you for being here. And to our audience, remember, growth doesn't happen by chance, it happens by choice. We'll see you guys on the next episode.